Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast. My name is Melissa, and this is Sammy. We are diving deep into conversations that connect and inspire. Stories of resilience, triumph, and transformation. Stories that take us to the heart of human connection. Please note that opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect those of this podcast. Please listen with your kindness and an open mind. Each story shared is authentic and vulnerable. Let's embrace our differences with empathy, knowing every voice enriches us. Together, let's cultivate a community of respect and curiosity. Thank you for listening. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired.
Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast, everyone. Today we are joined by Gail Taylor. Gail is a musician, an author, and a public speaker, and she's on a mission to encourage people to live their best lives. And she's written a book in a really, really unique way. And I want you to tell us about it, Gail, because I just think the way that you've written your book, her book is called Curveballs. And the way you've written your book is so unique. I would like to start there. I would like to just jump right in and have you tell us, how did you get to this place? And can you describe how your book is laid out? Can you describe the uniqueness of your book to our audience?
Yeah, for sure. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this. This is cool. So I'm going to start with the part of your question, how did you get to this place? Because I was a financial advisor for 25 years, and I absolutely loved my job. I was really good at it, and it was an amazing profession for me. And then when I was 58 years old, I decided to take piano lessons. And I had no musical background. I had never taken a lesson in my life. So here I am learning the scales, starting from scratch. And then 2 years into it, I was having so much fun, and music came flooding back into my life, even listening to it, right? I had stopped. I was listening to economics books in the car on the way to work. And so I said to my husband after 2 years that I'm going to retire a little bit sooner than I had planned, sell my practice, and study music full time. And he said, yeah, okay, no problem, but don't go away. And I said, no, I won't. And so I hired private teachers. Berkeley, I went to Berkeley School of Music because they have an online program and you don't have to audition. All you have to do is pay the money. And so I took bass guitar, keyboard, songwriting, ear training. I'm taking all of this and I'm loving it. So after 2 years of this, I thought, I think I'll reinvent myself as a musician. And when I shared that story with folks, I kept getting the same reaction. I kept getting, Gail, that's so inspiring. I'm going to go do something they had put on the back burner. And so I heard that so often that I thought, whoa, never mind reinventing myself as a musician. I'm going to come out of retirement, start my business, Gail Taylor Music, become a keynote speaker, and help people become their best selves. I mean, we've had so many curveballs thrown at us. I studied personal growth for 40 years and peak performance. So I thought, I'm going to share my stories. I'm going to help people become their best selves. And so when I hired an entertainment lawyer to set my company up, and I told him what I was doing, and I said, I'll use my music on stage and the videos. And he said, okay, but if you want to be successful at that, you got to write a book. So I said, okay, I'll write a book. And so now here's the second part of your question. I designed the book so that the first piece of the book is a story. It's a personal story. It's a curveball that life threw at me. And I had a lot of them. I dealt with death and addiction and a child with an addiction. And so, yeah, I mean, we all have the same stories, just different versions of it. So I share my story, and then I share the tools that I used to work through that story. And then at the end of each chapter, there's a QR code that you can scan, and you can go listen to the song that I wrote that was inspired by that story. And then there's also a lyric video there too. So I literally put a soundtrack in my book. How cool is that?
It's so cool. I Love that. Sorry, Sammy, I just spoke right over top of you.
No, I was gonna say the exact same. Like, I think that's so unique, and I've never met someone who's written a book or even heard of a book written that way before. And how powerful to know, because we all know what it's like when you hear a song that like hits you and connects to your piece of whatever's going on like that. But how cool! And then you can read a story from a book and it hits you. You take the pieces that apply to you and it connects to you, and now you can do both from the same person in one book. Like, I think that's really, yeah,
just
really
takes you
cool.
on a journey, right? So do you have I apologize, I don't remember if you said this. Do you have, how do they reach the song? Do you have a QR code at the end of the chapter?
Yeah, that's how they reach it. And I've had people say to me, like even my mother, oh my God, she's such a sweetheart. My mom's 94 years old, right? And she's reading my book and she's, on chapter 5 or 6, and she phones me and says, I'm really enjoying your book. And I don't know how to use QR codes, but I do know how to go to YouTube on my iPad. So I go to YouTube and I pull up the song that was, because I put the lyrics in the book as well. So that is so cute. But the QR code is there. And technology, I mean, I love technology. I have, lots of AI is going to change the world, right? And you're saying, "Oh, this is unique. I haven't seen a book like this before," but it won't be unique for very long. And I just love the world, the way that it works right now with, like, as a songwriter, I don't sing. So you're going to see when you go listen to my songs, sometimes it's male singers. I have different vocalists. So what I do is I write the song, and then I have a friend in Nashville that co-writes with me. And then I hire a studio in Nashville and studio musicians to record the song. And I basically tell them what I want, whether I want it to be country or rock and what speed. And then I'm on a Zoom call with them while they're doing it. And they're saying, is this what you want, Gail? I'm there, yeah, maybe go down there instead of up, or no ukuleles, this is a rock song. I mean, oh my God, these musicians are amazing. And I can actually hire the vocalists through them too, because they're studio vocalists. So my moniker is Guilty as Charged. That's what my is a band. I can't really have a band because I'm not in there. But in the old days, if you wrote a song, if you were a songwriter, you had to submit it to a record label and have somebody else say, yes, we're willing to bring your song to life. But now you could bring your own music to life. I just used an indie distributor, and I have a channel on Spotify and Apple and YouTube, and like you can stream my music wherever you stream the big labels' music. It's so what a cool era that we're living in.
I feel like that is the coolest thing about right now, is just like you said, you don't have to wait for someone else to like your stuff. You can put it out there and let your people find your things, which is like a pretty incredible. I really want to title your podcast not No Ukuleles, This is a Rock Song. I love that so much.
Can that be the title of this episode?
She knows what she wants.
We'll see what happens, but so far
that's the title of this episode.
Sorry.
I love that so much.
I kind of want to so we pulled this mug out the other day when we were recording with our last one. This is our pivot mug. I'm going to pivot. It's our friend's pivot mug. I want to ask you about your mentality when it comes to curveballs, because I know you're saying everybody has curveballs, everybody has life. That's what your book is about. Obviously, it's called Curveballs. I want to ask you, when a curveball comes your way, when they have come your way, you've talked in our pre-interview conversation, we were talking about how resilient and strong you are, and it's just like, let's just keep going. Can you share a bit about your mentality when it comes to when a curveball hits you? Like, some people, like, it hits and they have to, like, they I don't use wallow in a negative term, but like they have to sit in it for a long time, and then they're like, okay, here's how we keep going. Some people, that moment of sitting and processing is very quick, and it's just, how do we keep going? Like, what is that like for you when it comes to those curveballs that life throws you?
So yeah, and the answer to your question obviously morphed over the decades, over the decades of my life. I look at it as a couple things, as it's not the curveball that life throws at you, it's how you deal with it that matters. And like you said, everybody's going to have a different approach. And all the tools that I've used, like, well, so the biggest curveball that I had thrown at me was my dad dying when I was 12 years old because I wasn't ready. I couldn't handle it. I mean, I kept him alive. That talk about trauma. I kept him alive for 2 years in my head. I said he was a spy for the government, and they had to pretend that he died, so that he could save the save the world. And then my mom had to move us from this little town in northern Ontario to Ottawa because she needed to get a job, and there was six of us, and she was in her mid 30s. So she moves us to the city, and she told me later that she was trying to keep us together and keep us off welfare. And she succeeded in doing that, and she's an amazing lady. But in the meantime, the city just swallowed me up and chewed me up and spit me out. I mean, at 12 years old, I started using drugs and alcohol and reckless behavior. And all the women listening to this know what reckless behavior is. And this is before my 13th birthday. And by the end of my 12th year, I was I was getting stoned every single day. It wasn't occasional. Heck, I would sneak out when my mom fell asleep, hitchhike to a seedier part of the town, get stoned, and then hitchhike home at 2 o'clock in the morning. A 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 14, like that. I know, I'm lucky. I'm lucky I'm alive. So I stayed stoned for 10 years. And then here's the answer to your question was one day I woke up and I thought, yeah, look at the mess I made, and not just in my house, in my soul. And there's got to be more to life than this. I know I can pull myself out of this rut, right? And that little hope changed everything. I mean, it was my first bottom. I've had more since then. It was my first bottom, but the very first book that I read was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I know a lot of your listeners have heard of it or read it. And he talks about riches isn't money to him. It could be family, it could be whatever it is that your passion and purpose is. But to me, a dysfunctional 20-something-year-old, it was money. I wanted to be a millionaire. And so I learned from that very first book about believing in myself and my ability to do what I want to do and my internal dialogue. And that changed my life. My internal dialogue, whether you call it your internal dialogue or the power of positive thinking, relate to it what you want. But when I shifted my internal dialogue from being a victim and from dwelling on negative thoughts and gave it the positive food that it needed, my life changed overnight. And my ability to deal with curveballs changed the exact same way. So whenever there's a curveball at me, I just look up at the sky and say to the universe, okay, what's the lesson here? What do you want me to learn? And how do I grow from this? How do I, where's the opportunity? Curveballs usually come with opportunities. And so where's the opportunity that I can use here and work my way through the curveball? I read this other book in the 70s. Gail Taylor wrote it, and she was Olympic athlete or a long distance runner. And so you all know that everybody listening to this knows that Olympic athletes visualize what they're going to do on their event day, and that's part of their training. And she said if she found herself in her head, she used a trigger word and then she shifted. So her trigger word was garbage in, garbage out. So I just stole it. So that's mine. That's been mine for decades. Garbage in, garbage out. So if I find myself in my head thinking, oh, let's say I have an opportunity to do a proposal for a keynote. And so I get in my head, I don't do this, but if I got in my head and said, oh, there's no use filling this application out because they're going to get so many applications and there's so many good speakers. And they probably already heard everything I have to say. Garbage in, garbage out. And if I'm alone, I'll scream it. Garbage in, I'll be in my car. Garbage in. And then I'll rephrase it. Oh my God, thank God I stumbled across this proposal. I'm going to be the perfect fit. And my fee is reasonable. So, oh my God, this is going to be such a benefit for them and for me. And can't wait, and that's it. That was the most, and I talk about this tool in the book along with a gazillion other tools, but that was the most powerful tool, is taking control of my internal dialogue.
That's it's so powerful, Gail, because we hear that kind of stuff all the time. Like, what you say to yourself is going to be true. You have to speak positively. But the way that you just said that, you read it in two different books, and you just it was this, okay, shift, go. It wasn't, oh yeah, I heard that 6 years ago, and I've kind of been trying to figure it out. What you're saying is I read this and I was heck yeah, I got to do this. And you just went. And how quickly you're saying you just make this shift is it doesn't mean you're not human and you have those thoughts in those moments, but you catch them as quickly as you can and shift them. And that's really incredible. Good for you.
Yeah. And you know what? I didn't just read it in 2 books. I read it in 20 books. 50 books. Well, because here's the thing, and that's what I say about people studying personal growth or peak performance. You can't just read the book and throw it aside. You got to study it. You got to work it. You got to, an internal dialogue shift doesn't happen overnight. It's like training for a marathon. It's going to take you a year and a half to get it all together. But no matter what subject you're studying, right? Whether it's music or personal growth or medicine, it doesn't matter. If you read 10 books on a subject and you highlight the top 10 ideas or suggestions that are being med, and you do it for 10 different books, there's going to be 70 to 80% overlay. Mm-hmm. It's not I didn't reinvent anything in my book. Right? It's all of the books are going to say the same thing, but in different words. And sometimes it takes us 3 or 4 times of hearing it before we, oh yeah, I should do that. I should try that. It's just like eating healthy. I talk about foundation in my book: eat, sleep, and exercise. Everybody knows how to eat healthy. I tell them in the book how to eat healthy. Come on, there's not too many folks out there that don't know the difference between eating fast food and fruit and vegetables. But knowing how to do something and doing it are not the same thing. And that's the trick. It's the follow through. I always say people that are successful are no different than people that aren't. The thing that I see that's the difference between them is follow through. They know the same thing. It's just follow through.
Whoa. I love that.
Yeah.
Can I pick up on something that you just said? And it might take me, I might fumble my words a little bit, but I have something brewing. I need to work it out. All right. So you said something that when you said, I haven't done anything in my book that hasn't been done before, or you said something to that tune, that you haven't reinvented anything with your book, which I would say you're doing it in a unique way. But to speak on that, what would you say to somebody who is maybe having a dream or pursuing something, and there's this kind of intrusive thought that's yeah, but so many others have done it before. There are other things like this. Other people are saying this. Other people are talking about this. Other people are teaching this thing that I want to teach. What would you say to somebody in that mindset?
I'd say, awesome, join the fray. You don't have to just be, if your dream is to do something that there's, already a bunch of folks up there doing it, well, get up there and join them. I'm not the first songwriter out there, and I'm sure I'm not the first storyteller or keynote speaker. In fact, when I decided I want to become a keynote speaker, that was a lot of what I heard was, oh, there's no money in it. Oh, and they're right. A lot of people will speak for free, and I don't. And so but I don't care what they're saying. I don't care what they're saying. Go after your dream. I again, I didn't invent this, but it's, if you believe you can do it, you can do it. If you believe you can't do it, you can't do it. You're right. You're right. Whichever way you want to think. And they always say, try to find your uniqueness. Like, so if you're in a sea of, like when I was a financial advisor, so you're in a sea of financial advisors, why should the investor work with you, right? What makes you unique? Now, there are a couple things that made me unique. One was that I was female, because the industry still only has 10 to 15% female. It's a predominantly male dominated industry, especially in the full service brokerage houses. But I'll tell you a story that was kind of funny, and I share this one in the book too, is that I was, I don't know, 15 years into my career. Everything was going great. I was successful, but I wanted to get to the next level. And I didn't know what the next level was. I just assumed that it was more clients, more money, more assets, more. I'm a product of the 80s, like me generation. So I hired this business coach, and I explained to him that, I want to take my practice to the next level, but I really don't know what that is. And so this guy says to me, okay, so what are you trying to get out of, Gail Taylor's practice, investment practice, and Gail Taylor as a person? Like, what are you trying to get out of life? And I said, oh, real easy to explain that. I want to help my clients become financially independent so that they can retire in the same lifestyle that they are now working. I want to help myself become financially independent so that I can stop working and I can do more work to make the world a better place. I like volunteering. I like giving back. I have that supporter part in my personality too. And this guy said to me, yeah, Gail, that's not how it works. You don't work until you retire and then you go do your passion. You have to find a way to incorporate your passion into your work, or you might as well retire today, sell your practice, and move on. And he said, I have a bunch of exercises that we can do, and that'll help you figure that out. So I did this, and during the course of the exercise, I kind of stumbled upon or learned about socially responsible investing. So it's called ESG, which is environment, social, and governance. And it's a style of investing where you invest the assets in a way that you're screening out companies that are abusing the world. So, on the environment side, I didn't screen out the oil industry. I live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. But what I did do is I bought the companies that were putting R&D dollars into alternative cleanup ways and also into alternative energy, right? I screened out the companies that weren't doing that. On the social side, we screened out companies that were using sweatshops in developing countries, or, making folks work for 14 hours a day without breaks and underpaying them. And on the governance side, we looked at boards with diversity, corporate boards that had women on them, and other ethnic groups. And so it was so cool when I discovered this. It was like, oh my God, I'm lining up my purpose and passion into my practice. And so and because I had a conservative practice, the returns weren't even any different. It was the same return. So when I brought this to my clients, I expected to take a haircut. I was managing about $80 million at the time, and I thought it had probably dropped down to about 64, 68. I figured about a 20% haircut, which was a big chunk of my income. But my clients didn't hire me to be a do-gooder, right? So I didn't know what was going to happen. Well, guess what? The opposite happened. They embraced it. Every single one of them, proud Canadian. They literally said to me, why didn't you bring this to me sooner? Like, I got no pushback. So yeah, it was awesome that I was able to shift into that world and create, because I talk a lot about purpose and passion, and that you should be working in a job that you like because it's half your waking life.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so for me to be able to do that was just huge.
I think that's a big thing that lots of people fall for. Not what you said, but the opposite of what you said is I'll make my money doing something that's fine, and then I'll do the things that are important to me, instead of, well, how can you make the things that are important to you line up with what you're doing? And does it happen right away? Not always. But it can come as long as you're putting that passion and that drive and the follow through and the work behind it. It'll come, right? So I think that that's incredible the way that you did that with investing. I know the topic here is not your investing skills, but like, I think that's incredible the way that you went about researching companies to find that.
Well, and I didn't want to be unique anymore, right? I didn't want it to be unique. Like the start of the question was, people say there's already a bunch of people up there, so in that area, so should I go in? Now, the corporate world says find your uniqueness. I wanted everybody to embrace that style to make the world a better place. So I didn't even want it to be a uniqueness. And when I talk about in the book about going after that career of purpose and passion, a starting point, the tool to start with, is just as simple as make a list of 10 or 15 things that you love to do, right? If you love to walk your dog and you love to play with the kids, or you figure out the things that you like to do, and then go find out what the jobs are in that field. Right? If you're really passionate about animals, can you go work at a vet place or a pet store? And I mean, sometimes you have to re-educate, but so what? I did my MBA at 55. You can get your education at any time. And so, yeah, going through the exercises of finding what's passionate. And, to your point, I've had people come back and say, well, yeah, but that doesn't count for the single mom who has 3 kids, who has to work really hard to just, put the food on the table and pay the rent. And I'm there, but if that single mom has a dead end job that they hate, when they go home at the end of the day, they're putting one foot in front of the other and walking in the house to their beautiful 3 children, exhausted from the day's work. What if that same person could find a job that they love and that they're passionate about, and walk in the house and say to the kids, hey guys, what do you want to play? What do you want to do? Right? Like that, to me, it's so important to spend that half of your waking hours. And it's not limited. Like some people say, well, there's only so many jobs that you could like. Heck no. My son works in pest control, and he loves it. And I said to him, how could you possibly love a job in pest control? And he said, Mom, when I knock on the person's door and they answer their door, they're white like a ghost. They're all stressed out. They're freaked out. They have cockroaches or bed bugs. And I'm able to say to them, hey, don't worry. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to invade your privacy. Yes, I'm going to come into your house, but here's the process that I'm going to go through to get rid of whatever he's getting rid of. And then when you come back in 4 hours, you'll have the peace of mind that, you can go to bed without getting bitten. And so he says, to give them that back, to give them their home back, that's a powerful thing. Now that job would be my worst nightmare. I'm not going anywhere near cockroaches or bed bugs. And so the point I'm trying to make is that a job that's good for one person isn't necessarily good for, but there's so many jobs out there. You just have to find the one that works for your personality and your passions.
Yeah.
You know what I love? I love just join them. Just join the party. Something clicked to me when you were talking about how you
Join
didn't actually, right? Join the party. Let's, when you were saying you didn't necessarily want to be unique, because I think it's a strange thing facing everybody right now, that it used to be that your uniqueness was shining through in your town, in your community. And now your uniqueness is shining through the whole world, because we see everything now throughout the whole globe. Everybody's on social media. We see everything. And so it's hard to feel individual. But I love what you said about not actually wanting to be unique because you wanted everybody to want to make the world a better place. So the world does need your uniqueness to inspire other people to also make the world a better place. That is such an empowering mentality. I love it. I love it so much.
And then there's also ways to bring in your uniqueness, right? When we talk about my career right now, so I can't sing, and the vocalist is the main attraction, and all the people in the background. So because I'm a keyboardist, I'm thinking, well, I don't want to be in the background. So let me show you what I did.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait to see this. I'm so excited right now.
How do I get up to the mic when I'm just the keyboard?
Get out of here! Can I take a picture of us right now?
Yeah.
Stand like that. Oh my gosh.
Right?
That
Because
is the
now
coolest.
I can be beside the vocalist. Well, this was when I still wanted to be a mainstream musician. Now I do this part. But my thought was I could be at the mic beside the vocalist, and I could do the banter between the songs, because I can use this as the tool to get so you can be as creative as you want, right? So that's what I did.
I love that.
Guitar.
I love that so darn much. That is the coolest.
Too funny.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
You
found a way.
Go listen to my songs and watch my videos. Some of them have me on the guitar. I'm just acting, mind you.
I love that so much.
Everything you're talking about that you do is all about making other people's lives better. And that's what I'm hearing is like the overarching thing for yourself is your passion is in music. For a while, your passion was with financial advising. But most people, when you said that you went to that person and he asked what your goals were, and the first thing out of your mouth wasn't, I want to retire young and do my own thing. The first thing out of your mouth was, I want to help my clients retire young and do their thing, and I want to do that same thing. And you're talking about that with this. When you went to pursue music, yes, you found your passion in music, but then it was like, oh, if I can use this to help people find their own passions. Like, it's just so beautiful, and how ingrained that is in you. I just really wanted to say that about you. I think that's really, really, really beautiful.
Thanks. Have you ever heard of the giver's high?
No.
It's like it creates dopamine, and this is and so I tell people that too. I did a chapter on it in my book. Is that and even if you come to me whining about something, oh wozy, I lost this, I'll say go do something nice for somebody else today. Go go to a soup kitchen and give the homeless, and then come and whine to me about your problem. Or I know this is sort of changing the subject, but I love this because one time I was listening to one of Tony Robbins' things, and somebody was whining about something, and he goes, I want to hear your story. I really do. I want to hear your story, but I want you to tell me your story with a smile on your face. You're not allowed to not smile while you tell me your story. And that's the only rule. I'll hear everything you have to say, but your brain, once you smile, your brain can't whine because it thinks you're happy. So there's so many little tools, physical tools, as well as mental ones that you can do to retrain yourself. And when I told you the beginning of my story, it was because it was rough, and the 10 years after that was rough, and my son got into active addiction, and he was on opioids, and he's given me permission to share our story, but if he hadn't gone into recovery, we both feel like he wouldn't be alive today. And so I've dealt with the trauma from causing it to experiencing it secondhand. I mean, I have such a soft spot in my heart for all the loved ones of addicts, because it's so challenging when your son or your niece or your nephew or your spouse gets into active addiction, and you're looking at it like, what am I going to do? there's one of the songs that I wrote called Wings, and that's what Wings is all about. It's about giving yourself permission to be happy, even though your loved ones out there living on the street or struggling with what decisions they're making. You're on a parallel journey, not the same journey. So you still get to use all the tools that I talked about, whether it's compartmentalizing or boundaries or whatever. You get to use the tools to still, because if you can still have a strong and happy life, then when they're ready to get help, you're going to be able to be their support network. They're not going to have burnt you out and turned you into this high anxiety, depressed person that can't really help them because you can't help yourself. But I warn you and the listeners, if you're going to listen to Wings, and if you're in this situation that I just described, make sure you're alone and you have a Kleenex box because it's very, very emotional.
I think that ties into just what you were saying before, is it's not that you don't have hard things. It's not that people don't have curveballs, that they don't have hard moments in life. It's exactly what you said at the start of this conversation. It's how you handle it. And nobody's going through life not having any curveballs, not having any hard moments, but some people choose to let those hard moments hold them back, and some people choose to let those moments propel them forward. However that happens is a little bit different, but that's exactly what you just said. That's the biggest thing about it, is not letting them hold you back. I want to ask you, talking about curveballs and your book being about curveballs, and like you said at the start, it wasn't like your plan to write a book, it's what your lawyer said you should do. What was it like what was it like going back and writing that book to put all these stories in place and recall all these stories that created these songs to put on paper, to put out to the world? What was that like for you?
So it took about a year, and it wasn't that hard to do because I had already been talking about it in my songs. Like my songs I have a catalog of about 18 songs now, and I think I've got 11 or 12 of them in the book. But so the reason songwriting ended up being my superpower. And I say that's because I talk so much, and songs are just stories turned into lyrics, right? And so I had already been going through all of these stories in the songs before I sat down to write the book. So when I sat down to write the book, I thought, okay, there's lots of options I could use. And so I basically used a village. I hired a writer and an editor on Upworks to work with me through the writing process. If I was writing something and I didn't like the way the chapter was reading, I would pop it into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you make this little paragraph more emotional for me, or can you take some of the emotion out? And then every time I finished a chapter, I'd send it to a friend or a family member and say, can you read this chapter and tell me if there's anything you don't understand? And then even though I self-published, I used a publisher I hired a publisher out of Victoria, and they had 3 levels of edits. So, there were things like move this chapter here and that chapter there, because these are internal stuff and this is external stuff. So even after the book came out, I'm trying to manifest my book to be a bestseller. so all you listeners, I'd love it if you ordered. And so after that, I got some really good feedback, and one of the marketing people said, I think you should send it into these to get these awards and things. And I said, no, absolutely not. Like, I wrote this book to share my message, to give me credibility as a keynote speaker, but I am not a professional writer or a journal. This is not my living. And I did it with the help of a village, and there is no way I want to put my work and take away something that a well-deserved writer, that's their profession. They deserve that. And so So yeah, putting this into perspective when you ask the question, I know you asked the question, I do know you asked the question about the stories and not the whole book journey, but
No, that's
see what I mean? I talk a lot.
That's okay. No, I think that's, again, yeah, great. You can keep going if you had more to say there.
No, I'm good. That was what
Okay.
I wanted to share.
What a humble, beautiful act of kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Really. Like,
I know that's what I hear
just-
too.
I just
Is
think
again,
that's humble.
it's just circling back to your act of kindness. Is like, no, that's not about me. This is for this. I don't need that. Like, so many people would shoot for yeah, I'll do the awards, absolutely, and
Yeah.
But it's a mindset too, right? And like
Absolutely.
I'm type A personality, if you didn't notice. A bit of an overachiever. And so when I'm writing down, my to-do list, I'll write things down like uh make sure you do 10 acts of kindness in the next 2 weeks, and maybe even make a list of what they can be. But acts of kindness, like I'll tell you, and I trained my brain to do this. I didn't, you're not born with it. If you got to work through how you're going to be, especially after you are in addiction. But yesterday I was at the I was at the drugstore, and this lady in front of me had a whole bunch of items, and I was standing in line behind her, and she says to the lady at the cashier, "Where's the Johnson's baby shampoo? I couldn't find it." And the guy says, "It's in aisle 5." And she goes, well, I guess it's too late." So I thought, oh, opportunity. So I said to her, "I'll go get it for you. Hang on a second." And I ran down to aisle 5 and I brought her it. She goes, "Well, thank you." And I said, "There's a bigger size. I brought you the small one because I didn't know if you wanted the bigger one." She goes, "Oh, the bigger one." So I said, "No problem." And I grabbed the smaller one and went back and gave her the bigger one. And she said, "Thank you very much." And to me, it was like I get to look up in the universe and say thanks, right? Thanks for putting that opportunity, because you just gave me some dopamine.
yeah,
And I love dopamine because it makes us happy.
it's
Oh my
so
gosh.
interesting that you're gonna bring this up. I'm gonna bring it up for Melissa because I know she's dying over there. She sent me a reel last night that was it's an old reel. I don't know when it's from, but like it's not an old reel, but it's an old video, and it's talking about, it's probably from the 70s or 80s, talking about the study they did about how when someone gives you kindness, it releases all those happy hormones in you, serotonin, dopamine, all that kind of stuff. And as the giver of kindness, it also releases those things for you. And even as the witness of kindness, even if you're just, so that cashier as well also received that hit of dopamine and serotonin and all of those happy hormones that come with that kindness moment. And so it's so wild. Melissa just sent me that last night, unrelated, and now you're talking about all of this today.
That's why
yeah.
I was like, because that reel just came, when something just falls in your lap and you think, ooh, yeah, I needed this in this exact moment. It hit me right in that moment. And when you brought it up, I was like, the reel, I can't believe it. I'm going to send it to you, Gail. I'm going to send it to you so you can see it, because there was 2 actually last night. And Sammy, I don't know if I sent this one to you or not. So if I didn't, tell me, because I want to send it to both of you if I can find it again. So there was the kindness one in the study with the 3, like you just described. And then the other one was about hope molecules. Have you heard about this?
No.
Did I send this to you, Sammy?
No.
I thought this was, I meant to, because Sammy was a personal trainer, and there was a study about what your muscles release when when they're contracted, and they release, like scientists apparently called them hope molecules, because they release this like healing molecule of goodness into your body, and it's like serotonin and healing, like it releases healing power and like happy power into your body every time your muscles clench. And that's why they say like going for walks and exercise is releasing that serotonin. It's because when your muscles contract, it releases these hope molecules. I was like,
Interesting.
isn't that cool?
It's like that runner's high.
Yeah.
Giver's high. Yeah,
So
I know.
cool.
There's so many ways in life that we can get natural highs that, just, I just like, well, if you haven't noticed, I love life.
I was just going to say, you know what I love is I love the kind of life full circleness of you were pulling yourself out of this really dark place and you read books and they changed your life. And now you're writing a book and changing people's lives. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah, that's
I think
pretty
that's
neat. That's pretty neat of it going full circle. And I heard this from another podcast too. I stole this one too. I come from a place of healed scars and not open wounds.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, that's so powerful because it goes back to the very first thing you said on the beginning of this call about some people get caught in that victim mode when trauma happens to them and they never get out of it. And so, making the decision to find your way out of it is huge and it's powerful. And, I always say if I could do it, you could do it.
Yeah.
oh, I love it so
It is,
much.
and I think that open wounds and healed scars is such a good visual too, because you can look at someone going through something and they'll have a good mentality, but they're still in the middle of an open wound, and you can't. That no matter how good their mentality is, that open wound is going to be there until they come through it for whatever, maybe somebody just passed away, maybe they're going through cancer treatment, maybe like those big things. You're still in an open wound. You can have the best mentality ever, but like you're in an open wound. And then when it heals, then that's when you can like move forward from it. And so I think that's just a really good visual for that. I think that's beautiful. Gail, I want to ask you this. It's kind of a question we ask most of our guests. Well, actually almost all of them, but we changed the narrative of it depending on the context. If you were to speak to someone right now, someone who is, I know you said join the fray earlier, but I think more specifically to someone who is in their 50s or 60s and they feel like life's already gone by, like I'm at the end of it now, what's the point? What would you say to someone in that demographic?
Are you nuts? I think ageism is the stupidest thing that I have ever heard of. I mean, there's communities that understand that elders have a role for a really important reason. I wrote a book called Staying Young. I don't, and actually what motivated this one was because in the music industry, people think if they're 30 years old, they're over the hill. And I might as well get out of the industry and start doing construction. So nothing wrong with construction, but if your passion's in music, I don't care if you're 20 or 30 or 50 or 70, it doesn't matter. You can reinvent yourself and go after whatever passion you want to go after at this point in time. There's no age limit. Like I reinvented myself in my 60s. I started my company at 65 and I reinvented myself because I wanted to. A lot of people had to reinvent themselves. COVID just really did a number on a lot of folks, and they had no choice but to reinvent themselves. And now, with the trade wars we're going through and what's happening between Canada and the US and what's up next for us, there's a chance that there's going to be a really lot of more reinvention that happens. And I just say go for it. Go for it. You believe in yourself, understand your value, and find your way around the barriers. If you can't break the barriers down, buy a guitar. Like there are ways, to come up with. And so, just believing in yourself. If you need to read the books, I got one. You can. I mean, there was a lady in her 80s that got her PhD in medical. Like there's no, your age is only going to limit you to the point that you want it to. And I'm going to go back to what you said about if you're in the middle of a trauma, because you just lost somebody or cancer or something. If you read the foreword of my book, the lady that wrote the foreword of my book is a friend of mine and a life coach. And while she was talking to me about my book and stuff, she got cancer. And so through the year that I wrote my book, we worked through this with her, and she wrote about it. She wrote about in the foreword about she used one of the tools in my book that was called compartmentalizing. And she said, before I started using Gail's tool, I would get up in the morning and think about the cancer until I went to bed at night. But then when I used Gail's tool compartmentalizing and said, okay, I got an hour a day to do the stressing and to do the researching and to talk to the family. And then the rest of the time I have to play with my grandchildren and I have to, spend time with my husband and do all the other things I love to do in life. And she said, it changed my life. She said, I went through this year in a way, in a very powerful state of mind. And so even when you're in the trauma, you don't have to give in to it being all consuming. I mean, and that tool came out of if you have somebody in your life that's an addict, right? You got to be able to compartmentalize. When I wrote the story and all the tools about dealing with a loved one that's struggling, although I came from it from the point of view of an addict, I had somebody come to me and say, wow, you just gave me my life back. My mom has Alzheimer's or dementia, and she's so mean, and I have to visit her every day, and I'm stressing all the time. And she goes, and all of a sudden I realized I don't have to stress when I'm not with her. I can still go make music and have fun and enjoy my life. It's not my fault she's going through this. We're on a parallel journey, not, you know. And so yeah, that's my advice is you got this. Go for it. I don't care what age you are.
Thank you for saying that, Gail. I think probably a lot of people needed to hear that, including myself. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I know we're running low on time here, but I really want to ask, because you said we want to talk about this, and you addressed it a little bit here. Life always throws us curveballs, and there's so much going on right now with the trade wars and everything going on. Is something you really want to touch on? I just want to hear your thoughts on that being a big curveball for people and how people can work their way through that and step through that and still come out the other side without letting that be all encompassing in their life.
Yeah, so this answer is going to be probably different for everybody because everybody does have their own version of coping mechanisms. My thoughts, my personal thoughts, and my approach to it is don't put your don't put your head in the sand and say, I don't want to hear about it. I'm not listening to the news. I don't want anything to do with it because it's too stressful. Well, we want to stay an independent country. So we got to kind of, I personally think we have to be aware. I have an approach where often what I'll do is I'll get up in the morning, I'll get my coffee, and I'll turn on the news and I'll watch BBC from England, and then I'll watch Fox, which is a right wing American show. Then I'll watch CNN, which is a left wing American show. Then I'll watch CTV and see what Canada's saying. And then I'll watch Al Jazeera. So I'll watch all the, 10 minutes of all these different news programs around the world to see how everybody is interpreting it and what they're having to say. And then if I do engage in conversations about it, I'll talk about it in the sense of what I feel is happening, what I feel, who I feel, and I'm not going to share on your show, but who I feel would be the best option as the Canadian leader to navigate us through this. And talk about it in the positive sense of, hey, here's a positive, you know, all of a sudden we've got this idea that we could do trade across our country, get rid of some of those provincial, like right now there's a lot of protectionism in Canada. So we could do business with each other and cross border and change all that. And we could find other trading departments, so trading partners, so that we're not so dependent on one. And so, yeah, there's actually a lot of positive things that have the potential to come out of this. And I think that's what we look at. We look at, how do we get our country to the next level? How do we navigate this and and stay independent because we do want to stay independent. And so, but even that, even going back to the compartmentalizing, maybe that's how you deal with it. You don't whine and vent about it when you're here. Well, you know me, I don't think whining and venting about it is going to give you the right, give you or the person you're talking, smile when you do that. Take a page out of Tony Robbins' book and see how the venting goes. So yeah, so this is a major curveball. This is a major curveball. And if the tariffs happen, lots of folks are going to have to reinvent themselves. Industries are going to, close down. It's going to be a different world if they happen. And I say that's okay. Step up. Figure out what it is that you have to do for yourself and your family, and make it happen. If your industry shuts down, then go do that list I said of all the things that you love to do and find yourself in a different role that's going to help.
Yeah. I just want to say mad respect right now, Gail, because you were just given a full-on opportunity to speak your political beliefs and you didn't. And I think that is amazing and a quality more people need. I just I won't go down that road too far, but I just want to first mad respect that. And secondly, the fact that you go and make sure that you're taking in the information from all sides before going through your political opinions. And I think that that's really beautiful too, because not many people do that. Most of us stick to one political opinion and we don't read articles from other ones, or it's really hard to read articles from other ones, so we don't. And I just think that well-rounded look at things is really commendable. And I know that's not what you were looking for. I just had to say those two things. That mad respect for both of those things that you do.
Well, you know what? Awesome. And that's one of the things that I love about Alberta is, Canada in general, but you can agree to disagree. You don't have to have the same values, and you don't have to say I'm right and you're wrong. People can agree to disagree, and I think that's powerful.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, we do too. Yeah. That's funny you say that, because when we were talking to John and Mark with John's Crazy Socks a couple of weeks ago, we were chatting with them, and he was saying how it used to be that you would get together with your community on a more regular basis, with right and left winged people would come together, break bread together. They would find other commonalities together. And it seems like that's not as much of a commonplace anymore. And that's causing more divide, because we're not coming together and finding the things we do have in common and talking about them and respecting each other for our differences and stuff like that. But I thought that was, anyways.
That was a good podcast that you did.
Oh my God.
That young man was so cool.
Oh, they're so cool.
Yes.
They're so cool, aren't they? I just love them. They're so cool.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Well, thank you, Gail. We want to respect your time. Thank you so much for being here with us today. This was a really lovely conversation. We cannot wait to share it. And just thank you so much. We'll make sure. Where can people find you? Let's just say, where can people find you in your book?
So everywhere, but if you go to my website, which is gailtaylormusic.com, and Gail is spelled Gail, that'll take you to everywhere. Like my book's on Amazon, it's on Indigo online, anywhere that you buy a book online, you would be able to find it. And as far as just listening to my music, it's Spotify, Apple. Remember, guilty as charged. But yes, I would really appreciate your support if you liked my message, for sure, because I'm on a mission to make my book a bestseller. And from what I'm hearing, it's not for indie artists, for self-published artists, it's a little bit more challenging. So, but I'm up for the challenge.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much, Gail. We so appreciated this so very much. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. To help support the growth of this podcast, please feel free to leave us a review, follow us on socials, or recommend us to your friends. Your support honestly means the world to us. With love, Sammy and Melissa.